I spy with my little eye something beginning with S.
Sky. I spy with my little eye something beginning with C.
Cloud.
Yeah.
Two pilots in an airplane.
Oh, God, I'm bored.
I'm fed up with that game. Let's play another game. I know what.
What?
Hello? This is your captain speaking. There is absolutely no cause for alarm.
That'll get us thinking. No, not yet. Let it sink in. They're thinking, what is there absolutely no cause for alarm about? Are the wings on fire?
The wings are not on fire.
Now they're thinking, why should he say that? So we say...
Oh, how are we doing?
They've stopped eating, looking a bit worried.
Good.
Hang on, one of them's going to the washroom.
Is he there yet?
He's just closing the door. Now!
Right.
1, 2, 3...
Please return to your seats and fasten your safety belts immediately, please.
Yes? Here he comes, going up the aisle like the clappers. I'll do the worried walk down now.
Right.
Worried walk.
Right. Safety regulations.
Safety regulations.
Please listen carefully. I want to remind you of some of the safety regulations. In the case of emergency, it is vitally important to... as the warning buzzer sounds.
Oh, that's got him rattled.
Great. Yeah.
Good. Hey,
No need to worry.
I've got an idea.
Hello? You will find your life jackets under your seats.
No, they're on the left.
Shh, let them scrabble a bit.
I'm sorry, you will find them on the racks above your head. But do not unfasten your safety belts.
Great. That was marvellous. You should see them.
Right. Gobbledygook.
Oh.
Yeah. The scransons above your head are now ready to flange. Please unfasten your safety belts and press the emergency photo stamps on the back of the seats behind you.
Marvellous, milling about, climbing over the seat.
Please find the emergency sprill in the washroom at the back and release it.
But do not unfasten your safety belts.
That's got them back to their seats.
The emergency sprill must be released.
But do not leave your seats.
Do not panic.
Tea will now be served.
Inflate your life jackets.
And extinguish all cigarettes.
Please remove the luggage from the racks above your heads and place it on the racks on the other side of the aircraft.
Except the hand luggage.
Which you should sit on.
Now the look.
Hang on.
What?
Hang on.
What?
They've all jumped out.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't some trouble about this.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all
I
out
have.
of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Blaine is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of 'em, and the lava lamp is lighted to my left, your right, indicating that you can listen to the show at shrmedia.com. And also, that's where you chat at shrmedia.com. And if you want to watch the show, we have it simulcast running in two locations. One is on the SHR Media Facebook page. The other is on the SHR Media YouTube channel. I just, at this point, pretty much have to tell you that we don't water our drinks Just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free. But the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet. Jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your waitress. By the way, that was a Monty Python skit. I love the hell out of Monty Python. They were the best comedians in their day. And British humor, in fact, anyway, I like the hell out of it myself. Today is the last BZ show of the week. Today is Thursday, May 24th, almost the end of May. My God. End of May gone like that. Boom. Bada bing, bada boom. The year of our Lord 2018. And we have as our special guest for the first hour, Dan Herrin, who's a owner of PI Group in Alabama. I've spoken to him before, back on January. We're going to have him tonight for the first hour. In the second hour, let's see, what am I going to do? Oh, that's right, I'm going to excoriate. No, I'm going to tell you how great and wonderful and all-powerful the FBI really are. I'm going to make a series of excellent arguments about why you can trust the FBI. And I know that sounds a little odd, because, well, you would expect it. This is an odd show. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Oh my gosh, I already have some folks in chat, so welcome already to Simone. Good to see you. Mike, welcome. And I have two viewers who are in the chat room. And Dan Herrin, by the way, is going to come in. He's going to call in about 15 after. So here on the far left coast, that'd be about 8:15. On the far right coast, that's 11:15. In Central Time, that's 10:15, and in Bolivia, that's 19:37 and 8.27 to 5.2, subparagraph 2, sector 4 hours, because Bolivian time is just kind of weird these days. I don't know exactly why. I'm going to start out the show with something that I haven't started out with in some time, but it's definitely applicable today. And one of the stories that falls under this aegis just occurred. I just came over the news wires about maybe an hour or two ago. So without further ado,
it's time for happy stories and good times.
So the first one, which I suggest falls into a happy story, this is the most recent that just came out. This is from Fox News, although it's covered everywhere. It says, man opens fire inside Oklahoma restaurant before armed citizen shoots and kills him, police say. And as far as I'm concerned, that most deaf is a happy story. A man opened fire Thursday in an Oklahoma restaurant, leaving at least 4 people injured before he was fatally shot by a bystander, police say. The gunfire unfolded at about 6:30 p.m. local time at the Louisiana Lake in Oklahoma City, Fox 25 News reported. The unidentified shooter entered the restaurant and fired his gun, Oklahoma City police tweeted, who later added that 4 people had been injured. And in the story, you can see a couple of tweets, but let's get down to the meat of the matter. The man, police said, was apparently shot to death by an armed citizen outside the restaurant, and there was no indication of terrorism. The incident followed a shooting last month in Tennessee, during which a suspect opened fire at a Waffle House, killing 4 people. Investigators said a man inside the Waffle House confronted the gunman, ultimately disarming him. Police arrested the suspect the next day. In this shooting, however, officials said 2 people were hospitalized after getting shot, and they were expected to survive. The suspect is the only confirmed fatality. A motive was not immediately clear, police said. Authorities did not reveal whether or not the gunman knew his victim. So that just occurred. More to follow. But again, what do we say on this show? It takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. Facts and evidence right there. Also, a happy story today. President Trump gave a Navy SEAL the Medal of Honor, the highest award in the nation, for his fight against Al-Qaeda. And
join me in officially welcoming Master Chief Britt Slabinski to the White House. Special man, a truly brave person. Today we pay tribute to Britt's heroic service, and we proudly present him with our nation's highest military honor, and I would go so far as to say our nation's highest honor.
Bingo.
Britt and his teammates were preparing to exit the helicopter onto the mountain when their aircraft was struck by a machine gun and machine gun fire like they've never seen before, and a rocket-propelled grenade from Al-Qaeda terrorists down below. Not a good feeling. As the helicopter lurched away from the assault, Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts was flung out of the aircraft.
Listen to this.
The team faced a choice to wait for reinforcements and pretty much safety, or to return immediately to the enemy stronghold in the hope of saving Neil's life. They would be outmanned, outgunned, and fighting uphill on a steep, icy mountain, and every soldier knows you don't want to fight uphill. The odds were not good. They were not in their favor, but Britt and his team didn't even hesitate for a moment. They made their decision. For them, it was an easy one.
And here's another good story that just came up, because if you remember not long ago, rightly and properly so, in my estimation, President Trump happened to call MS-13 animals. Well, here's a happy story. This is from the Washington Times, and oh so appropriate, I would submit. MS-13 gang member, nicknamed Animal, sentenced to 40 years. That's a happy story, definitely. An MS-13 member who goes by the gang name of Animal received a 40-year prison sentence this week for a conspiracy that included the murder of a 15-year-old boy, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Massachusetts said Tuesday. The nickname, which the prosecutors highlighted in the headline of a press release, is particularly telling, coming just a week after President Trump called members of the violent, immigrant-fueled MS-13 gang animals. Joel Martinez, 23, admitted he murdered the 15-year-old as part of his initiation as a homeboy in Mara Salvatrucha, the gang's full name. I stabbed the culero, that means asshole, 3 times, Mr. Martinez said. According to prosecutors, he stared at me and he asked me if I was going to stab him. I told him yes. The Mara rules you. Culero is a derogatory MS-13 member's use gang name for a rival gang. Killing a rival gang member was a requirement for achieving full status in MS-13 in Massachusetts, the FBI say. Wow. I have another. This doesn't fall into the category of happy story, but this falls into the category of this is pretty damn weird. When the Waffle House shooting, and I already made mention of that, and yes, I still have conjunctivitis. Sorry, try not to look too much. When the Waffle House shooting occurred, I have had my credit card hijacked now, probably 4 times, 5 times in the past, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. I don't know if you guys do. I don't know if it's common where you are. Maybe it's just because I'm in California and there's so many fucknuts here that are all over the internet. I really don't know. Or maybe it's the nature of the credit card that I have. In any event, it's immaterial. Because I noticed, as I customarily do, when I went to go make a purchase, it was declined, and the next thing that I do is I'll go to a gas station, try to see if I can make a fill-up, and boom, just like I've done every prior time, card's done, dude. It's toast. Which, by the way, is why I always have a second credit card. A second credit card that I only use in emergencies, because my primary credit card is known to fail occasionally. Having said that, I got on the horn to my credit card company, reported what I thought was occurring, and, well, tell you what, we already have a call in. That story is going to have to wait. So, oh, come on, answer up. Okay, there we go. Doggone it, Skype didn't want to answer very immediately. Okay, so we're going to go immediately over to my first guest, my only guest for the night, because now I usually have guests in the first hour. And that is a man by the name of Dan Herrin. Now, originally I spoke to Dan, and good evening to you, Dan. How are you doing, sir?
BZ, I'm doing great. Got a little laryngitis going on, so I hope you can understand me. Along with the southern accent, we may need an interpreter for that on every show, but the laryngitis, hopefully we'll get through that.
I've been told that I have an accent too that's not understandable. I don't hear any accent whatsoever, if you ask me. In any event, for those who don't remember, Dan was originally here back in January. Okay, that's a few months ago. Let's see, he was on the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. And I met him originally on Twitter. I'm only on two social media arenas, on Twitter and on Facebook. I do more stuff on Facebook than I have, but I'm generally more active on Twitter. And after kind of looking at the stuff that he was tweeting out and going to his site, I decided that, with a little bit of witty repartee back and forth, I have to admit that, hey, I kind of struck up a friendship with Dan, and I said originally back in January, hey, would you like to be on the show? And I discovered at that point, because we didn't get to talk about politics all that much, but I discovered that Dan is kind of a bit of a Renaissance man and a guy of many hats. This is only his second time in the Saloon, but when I say he's a man of a whole bunch of hats, he took let's see if I'm remembering correctly, he took a science major in college. You took your master's, public administration, if I'm remembering correctly. You were a probation officer in Georgia. You were a federal investigator, so you've worked for the state. You worked for the state of Georgia. You were a federal investigator for the U.S. District Courts in Mississippi and Alabama is where you are right now. And you also own your own private investigations firm, the Haren Group.
Right.
Did I get it right?
You got it all right. I think you may have broken up on me. You got part of the undergrad thing right. I was a political science major.
Oh, political science.
Did you say political science or science? But yeah, it's really a good segue for what we're going to talk about. And yeah, I worked on a few campaigns when I was in graduate schools, and in my own private investigation firm, I've taken several cases where we've been involved in political campaigns. So. Pretty well versed in that arena as well. So yeah, but other than that, you nailed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. That's as good as the old BC brain can pull off at this point. But as opposed to the first show, when I have somebody on for the first time, generally what I do is I like to get a little bit into their background, and we just weren't left with that much time to talk politics. So let's get this out in the open right up front. You and I are both political animals. I live in a political climate. I'm in one of the ugliest states in the Union, and certainly one of the most corrupt in terms of left-wing politics, because, as I am wont to say, I am 2 miles from the literal locus of evil on the West Coast, the capital of Sacramento, California. And we both have politics in common. We didn't get to talk much politics now, but politics is, again, what you do. But I'm going to give you this right up front because I'd like to. Because you're involved in politics and because you're a PI and it's just sort of the nature of the thing, you have been offered your own radio show. Is that not correct?
I have. The New Right Network, we're going to start up, assuming this laryngitis doesn't get any worse. It's come up in the last 48 hours. I think it's connected to some bronchitis. But other than that, we're going to start up Sunday with their inaugural show. It'll be 3 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be called PI Political Intelligence. So I think it's going to be a good mix for us, and we're going to fill a niche that, for whatever reason, hasn't been filled, to my knowledge, where we're going to talk a lot about the sort of the convergence and of the things that I'm pretty well versed in: private investigation, federal law enforcement in general, and the political arena. And boy, has there ever been a better time to talk about all those things than right now with all the stuff that's going on with Trump and Spygate and attempted coup. And I mean, it's just it's a full menu, right? I mean, it's a cafeteria menu right now. There's not a better time to talk about all those subjects. So we're really looking forward to starting it up and talk about all those things that are about to drop with the Inspector General's report here in the next couple of weeks. I think all hell's going to break loose. I really do. So
we're going to get into that.
Great timing for the show.
Oh, listen, your emergence, or anybody that likes talk radio or someone that enjoys doing it, man, if this isn't your time, I don't know what is. I mean, it's a target-rich environment like I've never seen before in my entire life. Now, you were talking about law enforcement. I just read a story that came out from Fox News indicating that, as I've said for quite some time, it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. And there was a restaurant in Oklahoma that recently a robber went into with a gun, shot 4 people, and once he went outside, he was shot and killed by an armed citizen, not the police. I call that a happy story, and I call that a good time. We're going to get into some serious political stuff. Oh, and also I told everybody about a recent MS-13 fuckwit that just got sentenced to 40 years in prison.
The Animal?
And, yeah, he was named Animal, and I thought, okay, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. I'm going to start off with a particular story, and for the rest of the hour, I'd like to tickle your brain with a lot of the stories that are occurring these days. But I'm going to start with a little bit of an unusual arena, but I suspect that this has a lot more to do with what's going on today than people would like to recognize. Recently, the NFL decided that they were going to come out with a ruling indicated that if you wanted to make any kind of a political statement or you felt like kneeling during the national anthem, well, you were just going to go ahead and stay in the locker room. And those who wanted to come outside, those who wanted to partake in the national anthem, well, they were going to come outside and do that. Now we learn that NFL players are already starting to discuss what they call new forms of protest after that national anthem rule. So some various NFL players are discussing those in response to the requirement, what they call the requirement, to stand for the national anthem, even though they were given the option to go ahead and stay in the locker room if that's what they want today. And there's a particular guy who said that players are already talking about other ways in which they can protest. So what this says to me is what we have is a cadre of coddled, multi-million-dollar children who, because they're not getting their way, they're going to talk about some kind of a way to work around it. Do you have any thoughts about what the NFL ruling just... any thoughts about what that means to you? For one thing, I should ask probably, do you even care? Do you watch the NFL?
Well, listen, I've got some thoughts on it. I mean, you know, on the one hand, I've got a lot of thoughts about it. On the other hand, you touched a nerve when you said, do you even care? Because I'm getting to the point that I don't care. And I'm guessing that there's a lot of people listening right now.
Thank you.
That feel the same way because they've pretty much lost me.
Yes.
I mean, to be really frank, I don't give a rat's ass if they trot out, you know, with a folded flag anymore. I mean, these idiots, I mean, if there was a better example of destroying an incredible business model, I'm not sure what it is. And I think in 50 years, I'll probably teach this in grad school about how to completely destroy a business model because, you know, the NFL buried the XFL a few years ago. I mean, to me, it was never a fair fight to begin with. And the XFL made a lot of crucial strategic mistakes by particularly bringing in the whole wrestling angle. But that's sort of a peripheral issue right now. But except to say that now the XFL is back. We wouldn't even be talking about the possibility of the XFL if it wasn't for these idiots in the NFL.
And
you know?
What does that tell you about Vince McMahon? He's a smart dude. He knows that timing is everything.
Well, and from what I understand, I Googled this about a month ago to sort of see what direction, because it's my understanding that he's got like a 2 or 3 year plan. He's taking his time this time. He's trying to talk to people, experts, and just like, you know, he and Trump are friends, and he's got the common touch. He's talking to regular people and trying to get some thoughts on what can we do that would fix what we did wrong last time. So I think they're going to get it right. A lot of that stuff that I was reading was really spot on for the most part. The only thing I don't agree with, as a red-blooded American, heterosexual male American, he wants to get rid of the cheerleaders, and you know, hopefully we can fix that. But other than that, he's talking about no felons, no. If you either come out and you put your hand on your heart, you know, none of this dramatics and this hyperbole and nonsense, and you're gone. You're not going to play in the new XFL. I think there's also now this new spring league that Dick Ebersol, his former partner with XFL, is going to do very soon. I think that's going to come up here in about a year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. But the point being, we wouldn't even be talking about alternatives to the NFL if these morons had done what they should have done in the beginning. And by that, I'm really talking about Roger Goodell and the idiots that are in the quotes, I'm doing air quotes here in my hotel room, brain trust for the NFL. You know, and what did he sign, like a $23 million a year contract a few months ago? I mean, how hard could it be to run this amazing franchise that he was given? And he's driven it straight into the ground by coddling a bunch of idiots. I don't even want to call them SJWs, because some of these, if you've ever met, you know, like a bunch of professional athletes, I mean, let's be honest. Most of these guys, it's difficult to get through college, you know, with what the burden that they do have with practices and whatnot. So a lot of them didn't hit the books that hard. But
you're being kind.
And there are exceptions. There's outliers. But a lot of these guys are idiots, okay? I mean, they're mental midgets, and they're out there trying to pretend like they're some sort of, you know, the second coming of Martin Luther King. I mean, this is just idiotic that we're even talking about this, that they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. I thought the nadir for me was when the Pittsburgh player, I think it's Villanova or whatever his name was, the guy who sat in the locker room.
Oh, right. Villanueva.
He came out. Everybody else, he's the only one who didn't sit in the locker room. I'm sorry. And then they badger this guy so much. You know, a former, if I'm not mistaken, an Army Ranger.
Yes, he was. Correct.
They just badger the guy and ostracize him so much. I think he finally just said, you know, to hell with it. And it was like it wasn't even a real apology, but I was sad to see him capitulate. You know, I would have hoped that he would have just said, the hell with you guys. I mean, I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. And I think the fans, you know, they initially loved it. And then you find out the guy capitulated, and it was kind of a letdown. But yeah, I mean, look, you're preaching to the choir, brother. I mean, I just cannot believe these idiots have managed to tarnish the greatest professional team concept in history. You know, I'd given up on the NBA a few years ago.
No, I'm not a fan of the
baseball
NBA.
Before that, you know, after about the third strike, I'd had enough. So really all I had left, like a lot of people, was I really looked forward on Sundays to watching some professional football. And now that's gone. But, you know what, it's not all bad. I like a lot of people last year.
You started doing something else, I bet.
You do some other things, you know.
Yes.
You go to get some chores done. You go breathe fresh air. You know, life goes on, and that's what I don't think they understood at the time, but I think they understand it now, and they're trying to play catch up. I think they've lost so many people. I'm guessing conservatively they've easily lost 10% of their core audience, but it could go even higher. And of course, as you know, in media, 10%. When you look at that and extrapolate that into advertising numbers, it's just astronomical loss, you know. So yeah, I mean,
this has to bring.
Yeah, you're totally preaching to the choir.
This has to bring into question the entire business philosophy and business model of the NFL. We got about 30 more seconds or so before we have to take the bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we're going to continue to talk to Dan Herrin, who's going to have his own radio show on the New Right Network, I think this Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, you indicated. And I'm going to play a cut by a guy named Jason Whitlock, who is a sports analyst, and he was speaking on the Tucker Carlson Tonight Show. He happened to nail the NFL thing right down. So when we come back, we'll again be with Dan Herrin for the rest of the hour up to the top of the hour, and we're going to listen to what Jason Whitlock has to say, because what he says about the NFL players and about the kneeling situation is it has more clarity and honesty than I've heard from anybody yet. Folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. Don't go nowhere.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the Bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. Insidious. You know, we talked about this for, for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of...
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And you are listening to the SHR Media Network. It's the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the palatial and sumptuous SHR Media studios. As you can see around me, if you happen to be watching on the SHR Media Facebook page or the SHR Media YouTube channel, and if you want to just listen and clean your fish tank or balance your checkbook at the same time, you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. Tonight, we're talking in the first hour to Dan Herrin. He's going to be having a new show on the New Right Network, and that's coming up this Sunday at, I think you said 3 p.m., and it's called Political Investigations with Dan Herrin. Dan and I were talking about the NFL situation and how precarious the NFL seems to be in what a precarious budgetary situation, a plight that they should not be in. And I also said that, you know what, there's a sports analyst by the name of Jason Whitlock who said one of the most sensible things I've ever heard when people were weighing in on the NFL kneeling situation, Colin Kaepernick, all of that stuff.
Jason, I've only seen the New York Times, the Mark Leibovich version of this. I haven't heard all 3 hours of the tape, obviously. But you really get a picture from the Times story of a group of people pretty out of touch with what's happening in the rest of the country.
Yeah, I think so, but we got to remember, this is the New York Times reporting the story. This is a 3-hour meeting. They have the entire audio tape. I'm a little bit reluctant to rely on the New York Times representation of what happened here because the New York Times is a part of the attack on football. And so I'm not surprised reading this story that no one looks good, no one looks like they have a real clue about what they should do, because I think the New York Times is invested in tearing down football, the NFL in particular.
Interesting.
Right, leftists. Wouldn't you agree, Dan? Leftists, hey, they are much invested in taking down the NFL. It's a terribly violent game, and it ought to be eliminated.
Well, yeah, and of course, it's a bunch of masculine guys out there doing masculine things.
Yeah, bad.
And what does the left hate? The left hates masculinity. You know, they want to make they want to have a nation, if not eventually a world, full of essentially eunuchs. And, of course, that plays right along with, with the leftist playbook. I mean, if they had their way, there wouldn't be any boxing. There wouldn't be any MMA. Not that I'm a huge fan of either one of those. I mean, I'm sort of neutral. But if people want to watch it, that's their business. But, yeah, I mean, that's just part of the SJW playbook that we've seen for 20 years now. Hopefully, we're seeing the beginning of the end of the SJW playbook and the eventual destruction of SJW politics, and hopefully, I think we may even be seeing the beginning. And this is really sort of hard to wrap your head around, but they've managed to, in my opinion, they're on the cusp of destroying the Democratic Party. Did I sound crazy?
No,
I sound nuts?
No, I don't think you sound crazy. And we will get into this before the end of the hour, but I want to play the rest of what Jason Whitlock said because he damn nails it.
A nuance that went over my head. Part of the story describes the owner of the Miami Dolphins, this guy Ross, suggesting a march on Washington with NFL owners and players. What would that look like?
I'm not sure, but in a meeting like this, I don't blame people for spitballing ideas. It's the first time you're having a meeting about this issue. Again, I'm a bit sympathetic to NFL owners on this because they have a successful television show that they've been running for 50, 60 years.
Bingo. He nails it. The NFL is a TV show.
Yeah. They got a curveball thrown to them by Colin Kaepernick. And so I'm not surprised they didn't know how to handle it. And they can't believe the way the media is all rigged against them because you can't inject common sense into this discussion. The NFL is a television show.
Bingo.
And so you have a television show. If you decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to talk about cooking every day on this show rather than politics,
your bosses would have a right. No. That's not what we do on our television show. And the NFL owners have a right to say, no. On our television show, we're very patriotic. We don't have protest right before kickoff of our football games. That's not the way we conduct our TV show. Our viewers don't want it. The people in the stands don't want it. We get you want to talk about these issues. We'll give you money. We'll pay you for playing these games. You can talk about these issues on your time, not during my television show. The media needs to explain that to people.
Yeah.
Everybody has to abide by rules in television and in other employment issues. If I worked at the post office or UP, anywhere, there's rules I have to follow. We're acting as if these players can make their own rules, and anyone that objects is a racist. That's absolutely ridiculous. I wish the NFL would take this issue by the horns, because the NFL has a great story to tell, and football has a great story to tell about its help of African Americans. This league is 70% black.
Well, no, but they're too.
And the league is 70% black, but that's it. Bing, bing, bing. All over again. They want to placate the employees to the detriment of the corporate world itself. That is to say, the very entity that pays their damn paychecks. It's insanity writ large, but that's, as you were saying, that's endemic of what's going on today in the world of the left. Just when you thought things might get a little bit questionable, now we're finding everybody, all the leftists are deciding, even Jerry Brown now, because we're going to get Gavin Newsom, I'm sure, for a governor. Even Jerry Brown now. Jerry Brown is insufficiently left for the left. So I got to ask this question of you, Dan Herrin. We're talking to Dan Herrin. I got to ask this question is, what do you think people are going to do this summer? I've gotten out of the habit of watching the NFL. You have too, apparently. So I'm suggesting, hey, this might be kind of a make or break year for the NFL. What's going to happen, do you think, to the NFL this season?
I think they've permanently lost a small percentage. I don't know how much. I mean, but let's say it's 5%. Let's say that you and I are part of that hardcore 5% who said, to hell with you, you know? I mean, this was so simple. I mean, this didn't take an MBA from Harvard. No. Are you kidding me? I mean, Jason Whitlock nailed it. Just go play ball, man. That's all. You know, it is an escape for us. You know, we don't want to go to the theater and have the movie stop and somebody busts out in a protest or, you know, literally get on a soapbox. I mean, this was so simple and they've screwed it up. I think they've lost so many people that they're never going to get back, like me, like you. I mean, look, I might watch the occasional playoff game if I happen to be on the road and I'm at Applebee's at the bar grabbing something to eat. Whatever.
Right, exactly.
But I'm not going to be a voracious viewer anymore. Okay, now 5%, like we talked about before, is huge advertising dollars. You know, when you convert that into the currency of eyeballs, that's gone. It's gone probably forever. But I think you've also tarnished the product for a generation so that people aren't going to take it quite as serious. And if you get a Vince McMahon who rarely does things wrong, okay, and when he does, he usually fixes them. I mean, you can say what you want about the WWF, but is it not one of the most profitable business out there as far as the entertainment genre? It's incredibly profitable.
He knows what the consumer wants and gives it to them. Simple.
He does, and he's probably going to get it right. So what if the XFL decides not only are they going to come in, but they're not going to do spring ball. They're going to compete head-to-head with the NFL. Would you watch? I promise you I would. I would watch almost for spite.
You bet.
You know, but the things that they did that people laughed at, you know, like Jerry Jones admits, and I think there was one of those 30-30 documentaries or something about the XFL. You know, they've adopted a lot of those things now, or would like to. You know, it's been on the discussion table with the owners. So, I mean, there was a lot to like about the XFL, and if I were the NFL, I would seriously feel threatened, and I think they do. I think that's one thing. That's one message they have gotten is the possibility that this is a real threat. Now, they can poo-poo it all they want out in public, but I bet you behind closed doors they are legitimately scared. But look how they handled it. I mean, they went SJW light, you know. I mean, they didn't even do the right thing, which was to go hardcore and satisfy your fan base and say, you want to keep making millions of bucks. You need to do exactly what we tell you to do, which is you go out there and you respect the fact that, you've got to placate the audience, and your audience wants to see football. They want to see entertainment. They don't want to see politics. Go out there and stand for the anthem. That's it. I mean, that's how difficult is that? I mean, it just blows my mind. I mean, Jason Whitlock absolutely nailed it. Now, I didn't know that. That was a great clip, by the way.
It made so much sense that you have to ask yourself, are we so lost that people cannot even speak the obvious, the blatantly obvious, right in front of our faces? Now, I'm afraid that the answer is no. Now, we're going to change gears. We're going to shift gears a little bit because we've only got about 13 minutes left, 14 minutes before the top of the hour break. And another very interesting thing occurred today in the annals of negotiation. That is President Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, decided that he was going to cancel the Singapore nuclear summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and sent a letter today. And a number of the reasons for that was when they went to, it was going to be in Singapore, and when they went to begin negotiations and planning for that event, no representative whatsoever from North Korea appeared at all. Well, that's called kind of a clue. So Donald Trump today decided that, okay, that's it. I'm calling your bluff. And he did. And then, of course, the leftists went absolutely berserk over this. They went berserk because he wanted to negotiate. Now they're going berserk because he doesn't want to negotiate. What are your thoughts or insights or feelings on North Korea or Kim Jong-un and this very interesting situation?
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Now they're coming back to the table. That's correct?
It's
right?
funny.
The very latest that I read.
It's funny you should mention that, because just as I was watching another TV show today, this came up, and I have this really quick clip. It's about 20 seconds or so, and you're absolutely right, Dan Herrinn, because I think this is Brett Baer, and this information just came in.
Fox News alert here. According to Reuters, just within the past few seconds, North Korea says Trump's decision to scrap U.S.-North Korea summit is not in line with the world's wishes, and North Korea saying it is willing to resolve issues with the U.S., according to state-run media.
Is that not revelatory, as you pointed out? Now, why the hell would they be obstructionists, essentially, and then Trump cancels, and now they're saying, wait. What do you think the strategy is going on over in North Korea?
I think I have a pretty good idea of what's going on, and I think this is, the 800-pound panda in the room is China. Okay?
Nice.
Right? I mean, there's no question in my mind that China is playing a huge role behind the scenes, and China has had their way, like literally had their way with the United States for 30 years when it comes particularly to trade issues and then intellectual property, as Trump has pointed out. They've essentially robbed us of billions of dollars worth of intellectual property. That's a whole other subject for another day, of course. But,
oh, my God, yes.
I think that China was a little embarrassed that Trump was coming in, and he was sort of having his way with America first. And, we were so far behind the eight ball that for somebody like, the master of the art of the deal, this really wasn't that difficult. I mean, of course, we're talking about, hundreds of billions of dollars on the line if you extrapolate that out to the future. But it wasn't that difficult for Trump. This guy's the master. And so I think it was a move by China to try to play rough back, and I think they blinked. You're going up against the master. How would you like to be on the other side of the table from Donald Trump in any kind of negotiations? I mean, not me. I wouldn't want to be in that position. And I think the Chinese just learned a hard lesson, too. They don't like it either. But it is what it is. You're dealing with the master, and they just got schooled, okay? They blinked, and, because China is pulling the strings with all of these decisions by North Korea. And I think it was a last-ditch effort for China to try to salvage a little bit more incentives from the ongoing trade talks. And I think it blew up in their face. That's what I think. So
I would agree with that, and I hope you're sitting down, because I'm going to throw a theory out to you, and I'd like your response to it. But I'm putting on my tinfoil cap right now, because I try to think out of the box and try to think maybe a move or two down the way, and try to interpret some of the political things and the machinations that have occurred. Now, with my tinfoil hat fully applied to the top of my pate, what I'm going to suggest is maybe a little bit crazy. But what if Kim Jong-un or some elements within his party close to him, not the military, are saying to him, or he's verbalizing something similar to, you know what? I'm not so sure that I want to leave North Korea, because here's why. If I go out of North Korea and to Singapore, which would be the first time that he has ever left that nation, except to go to China twice that I'm aware of, I'm wondering if he's thinking that once he leaves, certain elements of the military are going to circle the wagons and either not let him back, or when he comes back, capture him and take over. Because once he leaves, for the first time ever, the military individuals that are conscripts, etc., that work for North Korea, they're just about in the same terrible condition that the rest of the civilian population is in. And I'm wondering if there isn't a cabal behind his back that he's not aware of, because if he were, he would eliminate them all wholesale and all of their families. But I'm wondering if he's thinking that once he leaves North Korea and he comes back, you can only take so many planes with you, and all of the rest of your military is left back in North Korea. So what if, coming back, someone decides to send a missile from North Korea up to Roly-Poly's little airplane and blast him out of the sky? Or if he comes back and decides that he wants to land at a given airport, whatever airport, as he lands, he's surrounded by a contingent of overwhelming force, to the point where if anybody inside the aircraft decide that they're going to deign to fire back, that he would be completely eliminated. Or once he steps out of that aircraft again, he's toast. And then if he finds out, if someone inside communicates the information to him that, well, you know what, dude, you can't land, because we found the military at every airfield for a craft sufficiently large to accommodate you, and so North Korea is pretty much off limits. Now, where is he going to go then, Dan? Will he go to any of the other countries with whom he threatened? Would he go back to Japan? Would he go back to Vietnam? Would he go to any of the countries that he's threatened before? Well, he's certainly not going to go to the United States, and I doubt he'll go to Russia. He might go to China, but he may not ever go back to North Korea. So trying to think out of the box, I thought, okay, is he that paranoid? Do you have any thoughts about that? Because that's
I do.
out
I think
there.
that if you listen to a little bit of the intelligence that I think is valid that's come out of this situation, he's essentially been neutered now. I mean, he's almost a proxy for China anyway, but he's very vulnerable, I think, in Korea right now. I mean, this is a guy who probably had, 15 or 20 barbers put to death because they didn't do that wacky hairdo of his exactly like he wanted. I mean, he's had multiple people put to death over the most innocuous, ridiculous things. And, I mean,
members of his own family.
I think he's extremely vulnerable. And then you make a great point. I hadn't thought of that. That brings a whole new angle to it. But, yeah, I mean, I think this guy is probably in fear for his life every day now. I mean, he went from a position of extreme power to my understanding now he's just a figurehead. He's lucky to still be alive. I think the only reason they haven't killed him is the Koreans, if they assassinate him, the ones responsible, China's going to come after them because China wants him alive until they can get out of this situation. So that's a fantastic point. I hadn't thought about that angle, but I do think he's extremely vulnerable right now.
See, I think that plays to the paranoia involved in dictators like that perhaps somebody got to him, or he heard rumors to the effect of, little fat dude, once you get aboard that aircraft and leave North Korean soil, you may play hell trying to get back into your own country. Because if you have a cadre of military people who are sufficiently upset to, look what, God, what was that guy's
Well, where's he
name?
going to go? I
Yeah.
mean, Dr. Evil doesn't have an island, as
No.
far as I know. So, I mean, who's more evil than North Korea?
Yeah.
So he's made so many enemies. I mean, where's the guy going to go? Like you pointed out, that's a great point. I mean,
He could only go
he's
to
like
China.
A character out of a Bond movie, but a lame one, I mean, one they would throw out of the script in the scripting room. The writers toss it about. And say, that's just ridiculous. A fat guy with a flat top haircut. I mean, that's not going to work. So, but yeah, it's real. I mean, it's incredible that this guy's been in power for 20 years or so. But yeah, I mean, you make a great point.
Yes,
I would probably be afraid to get on that plane. So,
once
fantastic point.
you leave terra firma in North Korea, you have essentially acquiesced whatever power you once had, and you have to be sufficiently trusting in the remainder of whatever elements exist politically and militarily back on the earth, back in Pyongyang. And if people they're manifesting their themselves behind lines, keeping things quiet as much as they can, I don't see that it's entirely impossible for something like that to have occurred. There's so much other stuff that we could talk about, but before you go,
I like the way you think, though. That's a great out of the box theory. I really like that.
I was thinking, if the fat little roly-poly obese guy with a huge beard, if I can think of this crap, why isn't anybody else thinking about this crap? And the corollary to that is all you're hearing in the political organs and what I call the American media maggots is everything but that.
Right. Maybe Q will pick up on your theory. Maybe he'll give us some clues, right? That's a whole other topic for an entire show. I mean, what?
We haven't even talked about the deep state. And again,
No,
I say there are 4 branches
about
of
fertile
government.
ground.
Yes, there are 4 branches of government. We know there's the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, and the 4th branch, which can be on occasion every bit as powerful, if not even occasionally a bit more powerful, is the deep state. People that are entrenched in D.C., in the swamp, that have certain allegiances, and when their jobs are threatened, they go to bunker mode. And I think that's what's happening in D.C. right now. Folks, we've been talking to Dan Herrin for the first hour, and before you zap off, Dan, number 1, thank you ever so kindly for being here. Number 2, could you let people know where they can find you on social media and or your business?
Right. First of all, I really appreciate you having me back. I love coming on your show, and if we can work it out on down the road, I would love to have you as a guest.
I'd love to be
Probably
on.
the first 3 or 4 shows, I'm going to have to sort of establish my credibility without any guests, but eventually I think we clearly have a format that and a strategy and a plan to bring guests on, and I'd love to have you on if we can somehow work that out. But
I'm in.
What was the second part of your question, right quick?
Social media, where can you be found on social media if people want to find you, and also your business as well?
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm Dan O, and the D, the O are capitalized, Dan O Haren. So you can just put that in the search, and it should pull it right up. My business is the Haren Group, and that's found at herringroup.com. That's HERRIN, and just add the word group. And that's essentially it. I've got a Facebook page, but
okay.
Really, the impetus of my social media is really Twitter.
Now,
that's the engine.
If people want to listen to
thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. If people want to listen to you on Sunday, where do you go? Where do they go for that? Is there a...
Yep, it's the New Right Network.
Okay.
I think it's there's a niche. I wouldn't even call it a niche, DZ. I mean, old media is not filling the gap like it should. There's a void, and you're filling it. I'm filling it, and I think others will fill it. There's a huge need for alternative news and alternative options, and the New Right network is gonna fill a lot of that void, just like your network, and hopefully there'll be others. And my show is called Political Intelligence. We're just essentially on the show we'll call it PI, which is an obvious play on words from me being a private investigator for 2 decades. So we'll kick it off Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and that will be our slot. And I would love for you to tune in and give me some feedback. As a veteran of this industry, I would love to have some feedback from you, and hopefully I'll be back on your show again in the future as well. Maybe we can work something out and reciprocate. That'd be wonderful. But I love coming on your show, and I love your. I'll tell you, we're tigers of the same stripe. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We've got a lot in common, and I really love the banter and the repartee with you. It's just a lot of fun. The hour goes by fast, doesn't it?
It goes by like boom. Okay, so Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, newrightnetwork.com, where you can hear Dan Herrin's first radio show. Dan, thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. Folks, we're going to take a break. Come right back, and then I'm going to tell you just why the FBI is such a great organization. Right?
Right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights. Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. Insidious. You know, we talked about this for, a good, for the last 3 years. And finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Well, guess what? It is the SHR Media Network. And I had to take a little break because I thought I heard what was rain outside. And so I jumped up from the desk real quick and went outside to see if it was raining, because we're actually supposed to get rain here in Sacramento. And it's been windy as hell. Really, really windy. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is going to be way cool that we really are going to get some rain tonight. And maybe that's what I hear outside. No, it was the screen door slamming against the outside of the building. Okay, moving on. Got it. Thanks to Dan Herrin for being here tonight. I hope that we can work something out so that he comes back and I appear on his show as well. That would be absolutely wondiferous. I think I just made a new word, wondiferous. Now, I'm going to tell you in just a few short minutes why you need to trust the FBI. But before I get there, I'd like to go over the one of the newest Kurt Schlichter articles. It's called "Liberal Lies and Slanders Are a Slippery Slope to Trouble." And Kurt Schlichter, as you well know, is a guy that I read quite frequently here in the Saloon because I just like the dude's style. He's got style, and I like it. So he starts, how does the left think that normal people are going to react to the left's rejection of the idea that rational discussion and debate and its attempt to keep them from participating in their own governance? What does the elite think lurks at the bottom of that slippery slope? Do liberals think the normals will, A, meekly submit to abuse and be cowed into submission, which I think, yes, they completely believe that that's going to occur, or B, that the normals will grow even more militant and make their voices heard in other nastier ways? I don't think leftists are believing B. I think they're believing A, that we will continue to be subservient because they're completely aware that they are our betters, intellectually and in all other levels. Superior ethics, superior morals. Of course, that's a major bullshit alert, and I'll go back to the article. Spoiler, the answer is B. Donald Trump is just one manifestation of the blowback against the rule by contempt our alleged betters currently practice. And if the election of the Donald doesn't convince them to change their ways, what will come next will not be anywhere near as pleasant. Bing, fully agree. The ability to discuss and debate issues in good faith is a key principle essential to the maintenance of a democratic republic. Now, this is a real principle, not one of those bogus principles of convenience, Frito-Con fellow travelers endlessly babble about like true conservatives. We must lose like gentlemen, and fighting back is icky and scary, and it's not who we are. BZ aside, fuck that. The principle of reasoned debate is critical. If the American people can't use reason to determine how to govern our country, then that leaves hitting each other over the head, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a democratic republic in the first place. Now, the problem for liberals is that when we reason, they lose. Leftism has a historic track record, unblemished by success. Now that's why I like reading Kurt Schlichter. And that includes its effeminate little brother American liberalism, whose greatest hits include rampant crime, welfare cheats, and national decline. The legacy of failure is why the goateed Durwoods lurking around campus coffee shops in berets and ironic army surplus jackets always insist to anyone within earshot that true socialism has never been tried. Hope springs eternal in the hearts of Marxists, but the rest of us have way too much common sense to buy that nonsense. I have to stop here just for a moment. I must interject. An acquaintance of mine, a friend of mine, recently went to Disneyland. And after having gone to Disneyland, he told me this tale. He said, I was walking along, lots of people, very crowded, lots of people having a good time in Disneyland when some people that looked like they stepped right out of an Antifa yearbook were walking by. And it was, like I said, it was really crowded. People are talking and listening to each other, etc. And they said that they were communists and socialists, and capitalism needs to die. Capitalism needs to die a quick death, to move aside for the true trappings of socialism and communism. And my friend stopped them and looked at them and said, do you see where you are right now? Do you understand what's around you? Do you understand why you came here today? And do you understand how much money you paid to be here today to say that capitalism is evil? And just as he said that, all the people that were around him that ostensibly weren't listening were listening, in fact. And they broke out into applause, and the anarchists snuck away. Back to the article. So, being unable to convince the normals that they have nothing to lose but their chains, our liberal pals have simply given up on the idea of convincing anyone of anything at all. Instead, they're opting for the hitting over the head solution, except their clubs are not wooden. Their clubs are institutional and cultural. They seek to eliminate our ability to speak. That's the deplatforming part of their scheme. They want to eliminate any venues for dissenting argument. Europe is their model. There, now, you can actually be arrested and imprisoned for saying words. Think about that. They do. And it gets them excited and sweaty. They would love to do it here. Do you have any doubt that the Democrats back in power would ban hate speech? And you have any doubt that hate speech would be defined as pretty much anything that we are interested in saying? So, you don't believe me, Kurt Schlichter says? Just look at the one area where American liberals have near total power, academia. There is no freedom of speech, none. Conservative speakers, on the rare occasions they're invited in, are immediately driven back out. Professors punish students who refuse to buy into liberal lies about our country and the climate scam, and about whether the list of all possible genders consists of more than boys and girl, and that is all. Squads of purple-haired and pierced mutants who can't figure out which bathroom to use wander our campuses, and SJW Stasi seeking out and punishing dissent. That is the liberal utopia today. Total control of the flow of ideas, total submission to the liberal elite. They would eagerly turn the whole country into Gumbo State University if they could. And we normal people would all end up majoring in obedience, with a minor in toiling to subsidize deadbeats. As an aside, just like the 30-year-old who had to be sued by his parents to get him out of their damn basement. As a friend I know is wont to say, they took that little lizard and made that bastard a dragon. Continuing, but in America outside of academia, liberals do not have total control, and this frustrates them because people are still free to say things they don't like, and that's awful and terrible and bad. They reject the idea of reasoned discussion because the idea of discussion raises the possibility of ideas contrary to leftism, and leftism always wilts under the harsh light of reason. They can't tolerate discussion or reason, so they have to undermine the principle. Reasoned discussion requires good faith argument, an argument that accurately characterizes the opposing view and refutes it with facts and evidence. But since liberalism can't refute conservative arguments with facts and evidence, history and human nature are insurmountable obstacles. They need to attack arguments normal people are not making. It's a bad faith straw man strategy, and it often manifests itself in the new obtuseness, the stubborn insistence that what someone just said is something entirely different than what he actually said. It's basically fancy lying. The new obtuseness was in full effect recently when Trump called MS-13 dirtbags animals. Despite the video of him discussing these evil gangbanging scum, the liberals and their media window lickers insisted that he was calling all illegals, all aliens, animals. They knew it wasn't true. They just lied, knowingly and intentionally. They do it all the time. We, presumably, are supposed to disbelieve our own lying eyes and ears. And this ploy is getting more common. For example, the NRA rejection of the idea of an unaccountable government bureaucracy being able to ban citizens from exercising a key natural right merely by putting their names on a list that has demonstrably been proven to be full of errors becomes the NRA wants to let terrorists buy guns. Of course, that fits in with how all of us NRA members, and BZ is an NRA member, are terrorists because we refuse to give up our rights because of some crime we didn't commit. The new obtuseness is a fresh take on an old-fashioned dishonesty. Then there's the idiotic idea that Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick thinks exits cause school shootings because conservatives deny exits or something. Apparently, do something only means disarming innocent citizens and does not include doing anything that might actually address the problem, like hardening the target by limiting access as occurs in every other single secure area in our society. The new obtuseness counts on you being stupid. I experienced it myself. This is Kurt Schlichter. I experienced it myself when liberals and their never-Trump poodles collectively wet themselves screeching that I was advocating a second civil war in a column expressly and repeatedly stating the precise opposite. And I have $100 that says some commentator or social media idiot repeats that lie about this column too. Now, this tactic really doesn't work. No one who can count to 21 without taking off his shoes and pants buys this baloney, but it does make the normals really, really mad. While using the new obtuseness feels good right now, take that, Trump! It's not a good long-term strategy, and it's a two-edged sword. Any strategy that makes you effectively defend MS-13 is a poor one, and I can't wait for the campaign ads this fall. This kind of rhetoric doesn't inspire normals to give up and allow the left to win the fight over policy by default. Instead, it encourages normal people to tell their opponents to molan labe, double down on democracy, liberals, because you won't like what's at the bottom of the slippery slope. That's one of Kurt Schlichter's newest articles. Liberal lies and slanders are a slippery slope to trouble. Well, we've heard about slippery slopes. Now let's talk about the FBI. And I'm going to make case after case after case as to why you can trust the FBI. How much time do I have left? Oh, I got enough time. That'll work. And so first I want to say thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for listening to Dan Herrin. And thanks for being in the chat room. And thanks for listening later in podcast. I always appreciate when my troops are around. And here's an interesting article that I'm going to start out with. From the Aclj.org. That's the American Center for Law and Justice. And the headline goes like this. Surprise. After twice denying their existence, FBI admits in court it found more Clinton-Lynch tarmac meeting documents. 16 pages and 2 text messages. After twice denying their existence, first lying to the ACLJ, and then once caught claiming it had turned over all documents to the ACLJ, the FBI deep state has just admitted in federal court that it has found new documents, 16 pages, and a text message that it will be forced to turn over to the ACLJ by the end of the month. In recently filed court documents, the FBI finally admitted on its supposedly third search attempt that it has located another batch of documents responsive to the ACLJ's Freedom of Information Act, a FOIA request for information relating to former Attorney General Lynch's suspiciously timed and highly secretive meeting with former President Clinton on a tarmac in Arizona just days before a publicly exonerated Hillary Clinton. Now, all right, now, come on. Let's give a little leeway here. Isn't that just a tad severe, calling it lying? Maybe the agents or their IAs, the FBI, by the way, employs what are called IAs, investigative assistants. So maybe the agents or the IAs or the civilians, the other civilians basically who do an assload of background scut work for agents, maybe they were just feeling a little bit lethargic those days. You know, maybe they had bad allergies, delayed borborygmus, ankle swelling, pimples, who knows. Specifically, the FBI reported that it has located an additional 16 pages and 2 text messages. The FBI informed the court that it will produce these documents to the ACLJ on or by May 31st, 2018. Stop right there. I have to test if in the course of your work, or if you're retired when you were working, you were given a task to find certain documents, and somebody said, BZ or Simone, go find these documents, and you know where they are. They're over here, and I'm going to give you, let's see, 2 months to get them to me. Would you ever be given a request like that? I don't really think so. So, you know, what happened is the FBI, they came around. They ended up, apparently, though they were a bit lethargic before, now I guess they're feeling better, right? Maybe? A little? A little better? Well, yeah, I guess they did get better. As we reported, as the ACLJ reported a few weeks ago, just days before the FBI was to file a response to the ACLJ's motion for summary judgment, challenging the adequacy of the FBI's search for documents, the FBI instead filed a motion with the court requesting that summary judgment proceedings be stayed while the FBI conducted its third search for documents. Yes, you read that right, a third search, because after all, hey, the FBI, they're not perfect, okay? Nobody's perfect. Just try lying to an FBI agent during an interview. Hey, look, agent, I wasn't really lying. I was, just sort of, the FBI's earlier searches were less than sufficient to comply with federal requirements under FOIA. In fact, following its first supposed search, the FBI claimed that no records existed responsive to the ACLJ's FOIA request. The ACLJ later obtained evidence that proved the FBI's claim false. Stop here just for a second. Why is the onus of having the FBI do its job fall to the ACLJ? Cogitate on that just for a moment. And the ACLJ demanded another search. While a second search was conducted by the FBI, which produced some documents, it quickly became clear that the search was, again, inadequate. Oh, come on. Like I said, nobody's perfect. We're the U.S. government. We have some standards, I guess. Right. Standards that the FBI and other government entities expect other people to uphold, just not us or the U.S. Nonetheless, the FBI did not volunteer to conduct another search for documents. The ACLJ had to demand another search in federal court. In fact, when it finally was forced to conduct the third search, we learned that it was going to be searching the FBI's central records system for the first time. It was that bad. This is Jay Sekulow talking just for a moment about how bad things really are.
President Trump's attorney, and he's also from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow. Jay, good to see you.
Hey, Sean.
All right, let's start.
First, let me tell you about the ACLJ. The ACLJ exists on donations. That's the only way they exist, because every time they walk into court, trust me when I tell you this, attorneys need money to function. So every time the government throws up some kind of an obstruction, it takes cash to file documents and put people making the FBI do its job into court.
Did the FBI, under James Comey, being the director, did they lie when they said that they had no information when you put in a FOIA request as it relates to the tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton and then Attorney General Lynch?
So here it
That's why you can trust the FBI.
is. It started a year ago, and we asked for a FOIA request for information, documentation that they have regarding the meeting between President Clinton and Loretta Lynch.
A year ago. Actually, by now, it's been a year and a half.
Response was straightforward. This is in response to your Freedom of Information Act request. By the way, it was dated October 21st, 2016. The FOIA request came in July. No records responsive to your request were located. No records were located. Then we sent the same request to the Department of Justice.
Listen.
And lo and behold, here it is. We get about 420 pages. And in those 420 pages...
Wait a minute. How could the DOJ find stuff and the FBI couldn't? Isn't the FBI the premier law enforcement agency in the United States?
Are emails between guess who? The Department of Justice and the FBI. And the contents and context of those emails is an attempt to create the narrative, define the story, develop talking points. We're getting press inquiries about this. The FBI's chief of staff receives an email. By the way, the chief of staff, senior counsel to who? James Comey, receives an email from the Department of Justice saying we've got to figure out how we're going to respond to all of this. And then take it a step further, Sean. So we've got a lot of those. All of this is to produce what are called talking points, which, like you said, it's unusual that you would think you'd have talking points in a situation like this.
There?
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't the DOJ and the FBI supposed to be nonpartisan? I thought talking points for politicians and their campaigns. I believe that
Why do they need talking points? They should know what they're doing.
DOJ and FBI should not be using talking points. Is that pretty obvious?
Right. Right, but here's the problem. They're trying to create a narrative, and we've been talking about this for a year. Now we finally got results. By the way, we had to go to federal court against the Department of Justice almost a year ago, to get these documents. So this is litigation that's been pending a little less than a year. So we get the documents. All of this leading up to, we've got reports in there, you mentioned this in your monologue, where a Washington Post reporter saying, hey, I need clarification on this, trying to fix this. New York Times reporter saying, I'm being pressed into duty here.
Okay, this goes on, and I could go on for a long time, but let me put this into perspective a little bit, if I may, if you'll allow me to do that. This is just one fucking issue. This is just trying to get information from the FBI or anyone in charge. Let's find some adults around here, shall we? Anybody in charge to find out something about what happened or any documentation that occurred with the meeting, one single meeting of great suspicion, mind you, but one single meeting between two politicians. Between Loretta Lynch, who was AG at the time, and former President Bill Clinton. Because we all suspect the fix was in. Why else would they send all of their PPDs, their personal protective detail contingent, out of the planes and away from anyone, including pilot staff, etc., so that they could talk about their grandchildren? Because, that's a terrible, heinous subject and extremely personal, and we can't have anyone listening in to our private conversations about quilting and our grandchildren. Okay? I found this article at nationalreview.com. It's by a guy named Kevin D. Williamson. And old Kevin himself writes, there is a reason for the crisis of faith in our institutions. One thing about being thoughtful progressives and conservatives generally agree is that institutions matter. It's important to have a First Amendment and other protections for a free press. But you also need the New York Times, the National Review, Wired, CNN, and the Times being what they are, In Touch Weekly, and it's Stormy Daniels' coverage, or else the First Amendment is only a hypothetical. The irreplaceable nature of functioning institutions is why we can't just drop off copies of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence in Somalia and Afghanistan and expect to find thriving constitutional republics there just a few years later. It doesn't work like that. The right to a speedy trial doesn't mean much if your courts are corrupt or inept. The right to petition the government for redress of grievances means nothing if the government is impotent or indifferent. So, as the Washington Post is wont to say, I'm changing their motto. Just thought I'd tell you. Their motto is, democracy dies in darkness. Well, I suggest instead, democracy dies in D.C. That should be their new motto. When the IRS was in trouble for targeting Tea Party organizations and other conservative groups in the run-up to the 2012 election, thousands of emails, evidence under subpoena, went missing. Think about that. Emails that everybody has a responsibility to keep and archive in some fashion. There are state laws about that, and certainly in private corporations, there are laws about archiving emails, and they can't do it. Tell you what, it's the bottom of the hour. We are going to take a break. This is the final segment coming up. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelins, Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon, right here on the SHR Media Network. Don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the Bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for, for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is now the final segment for the Thursday night edition of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Go to shrmedia.com anytime. There's lots of news up there, night and day. You'll hear podcasts from other shows that have occurred. We got a lot of other good shows on the SHR Media Network. Thanks and a shout out again to Dan Herrin. We've been contacting each other and speaking back and forth about appearing on the show. And my thanks again to Dan Herrin for being on the show. And again, a shout out to Kaiser Schuff, who I had on the show about 2 weeks ago or so, I believe. And he happens to be listening right now. So right on. My brother from another mother. Thanks for listening. Greatly appreciated. I was going over evidence as to why it is that you need to trust the FBI. And I was indicating that when the IRS was in trouble for targeting Tea Party organizations and other conservative groups in the run-up to the 2012 election, thousands of emails, evidence under subpoena, magically went missing. John Koskinen, the acting director of the IRS, lied to Congress about how and why that happened, a fact he was later forced to acknowledge. Were there consequences for that, ladies and gentlemen? And I think you know the damn answer for that. As a legal question, the result of all that malfeasance, destroying evidence, was precisely squat. Okay? Lois Lerner walks the streets, a free woman with a fat federal pension, and John Koskinen is perfectly comfortable showing his face in the daylight. And now it's the FBI's turn. Imagine that. With serious questions being posed about the Bureau's activities during the 2016 election, about whether the Bureau protected Hillary Rodham Clinton and Barack Obama in the matter of their habit of using off-the-books email communications to avoid ordinary oversight, the FBI has suddenly discovered months' worth of communications between FBI counterintelligence specialist Peter Strzok and his paramour, FBI lawyer Lisa Page. By the way, the both of them have now since resigned. The two exchanged politically charged messages about Trump and the email investigation, and Strzok wrote darkly of developing an insurance policy against Trump's election, still regarded as highly unlikely at that time, and therein lies the rub. Uh-oh. Actual damn questions. There is some quivering going on from the left coast. The texts went missing, and then they were recovered. Or some of them were recovered. All of them? Whose word would you take on that? And why would you take the FBI's word? Aaron Blake, writing in the Washington Post, argued that the insurance policy message looked bad, but not as bad as some on the Trump side insisted. Well, he allowed that it's 2%. It's 100% true. Mueller and his probe aren't above reproach. And that, of course, is really what this is all about. That's factually correct. It means, at the very least, not destroying evidence to a federal investigation, and no sane person believed for a nanosecond that those lost, air quotes, communications represent anything other than the willful obstruction of justice. If you want to find obstruction of justice, look no farther than to your alphabet agencies, ladies and gentlemen, like the FBI, as they're mentioning here, the DOJ, the IRS. If you're on the FBI's radar and you get a parking ticket in Sheboygan in 1983, the FBI knows whether you paid it. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is a federal bureau in the business of conducting investigations. So now he's really going to start to focus like a laser beam. No one believes that the IRS or the FBI is above reproach. No one seriously believes that the editors of the New York Times would have treated a President Hillary Clinton and a President Donald Trump in the same way. So President Obama's so-called scandal-free administration was, in fact, rife with abuses of power, from the IRS to the ATF, to the APA, to the NLRB, that's the National Labor Relations Board. Trump may sometimes attack our institutions without good cause, the Obama administration gave critics good cause to attack our institutions.
Joining us now, former Assistant Director of the FBI, James Kallstrom. He served nearly 30 years with the...
This is James Kallstrom, as he indicates, a former high director. He worked at the WMFO. No, I'm sorry. WMFO in FBI jargon is the Washington Metro Field Office, where I worked for a while. I'm sorry. He was in New York. My mistake. He's in New York. And he's talking to Lou Dobbs.
FBI. Good to have you here.
And so this is a director in the FBI history who is about to comment on his beloved FBI.
This is an extraordinary hearing in which we found out the former director confessing that he was leaking information to the New York Times through a conduit, if you will, a Columbia law professor by the name of Daniel Richman.
By the way, let's be clear. Let me start this. Let me see if I can get this around the nation. First, maybe I can get it around the internet. Then maybe I can get it around the nation. Then maybe I can actually get it into the American media maggots, because James Comey leaked. He leaked. Let's be honest. And that's not lawful, the last time I checked. So I have a new name for good old Jimmy. I call James Comey. He's now Jimmy the Leak.
And at the same time, portraying himself as a weak, frankly, cowardly
well, because James Comey, he's a victim. Just ask him. He's a victim.
Leader of the most storied law enforcement agency in this country's history. I mean, it was quite a performance. And then we hear the national left-wing media. You would have thought that there was sort of a draw in that, when it was clearly a disaster for James Comey, I think.
James Comey, Jimmy the Leak.
Yeah, that fifth column is really strong and getting stronger, and the facts are relevant to them. And, you know, I've talked about Comey for a while now, and I don't do that with any glee. Let me say right up front, the FBI...
It hurts him to say this. It hurts every FBI agent to tell you the truth about their beloved agency.
FBI agents are great. They do great jobs. They come to work every day to protect the country. It's the FBI director and people around him that have made these foolish mistakes. You know, and he has to come back, and he's got flutters in his stomach, and he's nervous, and he's got to write this memo. Well, did he write a memo when Bill Clinton met the Attorney General on the tarmac? Apparently not. Right. Did he write a memo when the prosecutive memo came over to the FBI and said you can't call it an investigation? You have to call it a
matter,
whatever, a happening or a thing, or
a matter.
The word they use.
A matter.
It was crazy. A matter. Yeah. And by the way, you can't have a grand jury. Did he write a memo then? I don't think so. At least he didn't say he did. Did he write a memo when the IRS went around this country and picked on, bullied thousands of people?
Thank you,
that
James.
Just wanted to, you know, display their democratic joy for things that they wanted to support.
Right.
And were picked on, big time. And because of their political views, were
let's be blunt, because they were conservative,
you know,
or Republican aligned.
Conservative roughly, yeah.
Were basically snuffed out.
And the new FBI director needs to look at the role the FBI played in that. The FBI also interviewed some of these people. Why? Why was the FBI involved? You know, what is going on there? Did he write a memo on any of this thing that was really in violation of the Constitution of the United States? In that, the FBI director has to stand up for the people of the United States, not be a card in some card-playing political game. And that's what Comey did not do.
Comey's a political hack. He's a political animal, and now I call him Jimmy the Leak. Jimmy the Leak.
He did not do that. At the same time, as you say, I mean, he simply rolled.
By the way, spread that far and wide and give me attribution. James Comey is now Jimmy the Leak.
Over when the Attorney General told him what to do with an investigation. By the way, I think it's fair to say, and tell me if I'm wrong, without a grand jury, that investigation of Clinton's emails is not an investigation.
Exactly. You know, and that's the day, Lou, that he...
I'm going to give you a little foreshadowing. A little bit later, James Kallstrom calls James Comey the dirtiest cop in America. Of one FBI official from another FBI official.
Should have stood up and resigned as the FBI director and told the American people why he was resigning. Because you do not conduct an investigation without subpoena power, without compelling testimony, without serving search warrants. There was so much evidence against Hillary Clinton, they didn't even need it. They had trainloads of stuff, and he read that off in that Pross memo, you know, that talked about all that. And then with that silly conclusion that obviously he had conspired with the Attorney General, she said she was going to go with whatever he wanted to do.
Right.
And then he crowned it off with this preposterous statement at the end that he could see that she had no intent, although it wasn't necessary. But she had no intent because she didn't really know what.
Okay, now, listen to what he's going to tell you, because I've told you this since 2016. There are two types of crimes in the United States, and I know this not being a member of the military, but just by being a member of law enforcement. There are crimes of general intent, and there are crimes of specific intent. So when James Comey refers to the crimes that Hillary Clinton may have committed, as far as he's concerned, he said she did not have the intent to ... Well, BZ, how do you determine whether a crime is one of general intent or one of specific intent? Because somewhere within the text of the section itself, it will say you conduct ... with the intent to stop. Were any of the crimes subject to prosecution of Hillary Clinton? Were any of those crimes crimes of specific intent?
Was going on. This woman that flew around in Air Force One for 8 years and was a U.S. Senator and Secretary of State didn't know anything about encrypted technology and why you had to protect the secrets of the United States. Preposterous.
And agents, the reports are.
By the way, the answer, if you hadn't guessed it, is no. In those crimes, they're not crimes of specific intent.
That the agents were absolutely repulsed by the director's decision, in many of them near revolt. And at the same time...
And that's when the FBI began to be turned upside down, specifically by James Bryan Comey, Jimmy the Leak.
This FBI director decided that what is a clear criminal enterprise, the Clinton Foundation,
right,
in which it was a not even a sophisticated pay-to-play,
and they shut that down. They shut that down too, and there was no memo on that either. I don't believe.
It's
you know, and you just look at the elements of the RICO statute. To me, it was a RICO case.
I've said that for years. All of these assholes can be swept up in a RICO, a racketeer-influenced corrupt organization. When you have 1, 2, 3, or more members working against the law, that conforms to a RICO.
Well, let me ask you this. When you watch Senator Burr, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, when you watch Mark Warner, the ranking member, what is your reaction when these men who are playing as if they were in some sort of Broadway play?
Theater, it's theater of the absurd. It's kabuki theater. You may as well put on your grease paint right now.
Don't even respond to what are the facts. They continue the
respond. You can give them FOIA requests, and the FBI won't respond.
Fiction that this president somehow there's some evidence of a collusion with the Russians. That there's some obstruction of justice.
I was listening on the radio, and it was all BS. I mean, I couldn't tell who were the Republicans, who were the Democrats, other than Marco Rubio, who had some decent questions. But I thought it was disgraceful. There was no question about what I think is going to be one of the biggest scandals ever in the United States, and that's the unmasking of thousands of names. I mean, where did they think the general's name came from?
Right.
You know, and why would they appoint a special counsel who was a lifetime, not lifetime, but at least 2 to 3 decade friend of Jim Comey's?
Right. And I mean, by the way, for whom Comey worked.
Right. I mean, you know,
and why didn't the Republicans object even a little bit?
They didn't say one word.
Because they're spineless, absolutely spineless. And finally, just as an aside, because it came into my brain pan right now, Jeff Sessions needs to go. He is fine. I've given him more than enough time to do something, anything, Jeff, any objections. You're a coward. You're a spineless, sniveling jackanape. You're a fucking coward.
What is going on in Washington? Now, Mueller's he's a good guy. I mean, he might do the right thing, but the FBI has to be looked at. What role did Comey play in the unmasking, if any? I don't know. And his testimony from time to time before the Hill was a little bit, you know, down the road where people wouldn't understand what he was actually talking about. So I think the whole thing was really, really bad judgment.
The best part is coming.
And the fact that John Koskinen, the head of the IRS, remains in that job is one of the great mysteries of
That's an abrogation.
This now 4.5 month.
Can you imagine? And
that is a political abortion.
I mean, you can make a strong case that he perjured himself on numerous occasions. You know, I don't have all the facts, but it sure looks that way.
That if he did not destroy evidence, in point of fact, he defied Congress and did not reveal the reality.
And this agency that really got tough with people, good American people beat them up. There's no excuse for that.
Okay, let's go to the other interview that I want to play before the show ends. This is a guy that I love to listen to, and he's on all sorts of shows. But he's a former federal prosecutor, Eastern District of New York? I'm not sure. But he's from New York, former federal prosecutor. Whenever he's on, I listen to him, and I give his words weight because he makes his statements not just backed with political blah. He makes his statements backed with the requisite training, education, and experience that he has to be able to formulate the processes necessary to make it plain and obvious. And I know he's speaking from his having been there and done it and seen it, and he knows how the game is played. It's a man by the name of Joe Digenova.
An answer to that question. We could go on. There are many examples of this, but the point is clear. The FBI is out of control, and not just in the Trump investigation, but much more broadly. An agency charged with enforcing the law clearly considers itself above the law, and that's a threat to you and every American, no matter who you voted for.
Now, let me stop you there just for a second. I bought a copy of Time magazine about 5 or 6 days ago. And I don't buy things unless they kind of intrigue me. Well, the reason I bought the copy of Time magazine is because it had an article about the FBI and how their power is being diminished before their very eyes. You may not know, but there are 56 offices of the FBI all throughout the fruited plain. And there are what they call RAs, or resident agencies, in smaller areas around the bigger offices. There are about, at last count, I think there are about 13,500, 14,000 agents in the FBI. Having said that, the FBI is corrupt. And it didn't just start with Jim Comey. It started with them beginning to feel, I believe, like they could do things and no one would get to them. And now it's being proven time and again that they continue to have this attitude, which tells me this is institutional. It's institutional. I know they do good work. I've seen it. I've been witness to it. But they've gone off the reservation.
Joe Digenova is a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, and he joins us tonight.
Okay, my mistake. He's from D.C.
Joe, given the centrality of Peter Strzok in these two investigations, Hillary email and the current Trump-Russia investigations, on what pretext could the FBI be denying these texts to Congress?
It's very difficult to see how they have any basis for denying Congress access to this data.
Okay, I'm going to state the obvious right up front because we got about 5 more minutes to go before the end of the show. And why beat around the bush? Joe Digenova is going to get to it, but the reason for doing that now, a 5-year-old could see this if the 5-year-old's eyes happened to be open. These are things that apparently escape actual adults in D.C. The FBI is obstructing and withholding documents, and that's occurring, mostly the obstruction, because the info that they're suppressing is damaging and will expose crimes and misdeeds, period, End of statement.
They publicly leaked the reason that he was fired, removed from the case. So there can't be a personnel reason for doing it. Right. And even if there were, it wouldn't matter. Congress has a right to that data. They can receive it. They have to receive it. I think what's going on at the Bureau right now is very, very serious. It's very depressing for a former federal law enforcement.
Stop. If our Congress, one branch of government, the legislative branch, 1/3 of the triad of the branches of government, 4 branches, officially there are 3, if Congress cannot see what our agencies are doing, how does Congress know that they're doing it well at all if they withhold information? Congress is due the information, and yet it's not getting it.
An official, this is not your mother's FBI. What's wrong with the FBI is not the average everyday agent. They're great. It's the management at the FBI that is the problem, and that management has not improved with the arrival of Mr. Wray. I cannot understand how.
I would agree, and by the way, a lot of agents that I've spoken to have said that. It's Comey on a different day who happens to be shorter with different suits.
How Chris Wray, the current FBI director, can tolerate having Andrew McCabe on his staff at this point, given his history and his track record. I think.
By the way, this is before the Inspector General. I need to tell you, this is before the Inspector General came out recommending the severing of the relationship with Andrew McCabe and the FBI, i.e., his firing.
The FBI is in very serious trouble. It started with James Comey. Comey, the dirtiest cop in America.
Thank you. There you go. That's all you need to know. Let's listen to that again. And I bet it hurts this guy to have to actually say this.
I think the FBI is in very serious trouble. It started with James Comey. Comey, the dirtiest cop in America, destroyed the FBI's reputation with his bizarre personal behavior beginning way before his July 5th news conference. The Bureau is in trouble. It needs a major overhaul, and if it continues to resist Congress, I believe the contempt of Congress for the current director and other people in the agency is absolutely justified.
So this is the most powerful agency in the federal government that can literally break down the front door of your house and take your freedom away, and they do that quite a bit.
Or show up at your house in the morning while you and your wife are in bed in order to frighten you like they did with Mr. Manafort. What a disgusting, awful display of
or Michael Cohen,
of raw political power.
That's a display of naked, raw power. Naked, raw power. Instigated and certainly fluffed up quite a bit by Jimmy the Leak.
Not law enforcement power, political power. I think the Bureau has been politicized by
Thank you.
Comey. I don't know what Wray's going to do about it, but he has a short time frame to fix it.
Is it conceivable, and this was reported this afternoon, we haven't confirmed it, that General Flynn at the White House in January, newly installed National Security Advisor, meets with the FBI, talks to them. They don't tell him this is a formal interview, and it's on the basis of that that he's charged and pleads to perjury.
It was Andrew McCabe who sent those agents there, by the way.
Listen to this.
The man who...
But can you do that?
Yes, you actually can.
Oh, yes.
But here's what's disturbing about it. It's technically okay to do that. But you have to ask yourself, given the history of everybody involved in that case, who were involved in the Hillary email server case, where they conducted a totally irresponsible, unprofessional criminal investigation, and then they turn up the heat on this investigation of Flynn, the same agency. This is
and I'm going to make a final salient point in just a bit after Joe.
Politics. The Bureau has been politicized. You compare the email server investigation of Hillary Clinton with the investigation of General Flynn and President Trump's aides, and what you have is a despicable politicization of the Bureau. They can no longer insist that they are fair at what they're doing.
Well, it's the same.
And enough of that. The bottom line is this, that if these people can do this against big shots like this, they can tear you a new asshole. The other point that I'd like to make before we go away is the FBI agents, and this was put out there, by the way, the FBI agents, after having spoken to General Flynn, they concluded and wrote and also told their supervisors and superiors that they didn't think that Michael Flynn was lying. And so everybody would ask, well, why did he take any kind of a plea deal? He took it because, like certain people that I know, they get worn down and they lose their house, they lose their family, and after a while, they just give up because in many instances, you can't fight City Hall. Try fighting the United States government. If you have a veritable untapped source of cash, good fucking luck.
Monsieur!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat radio show, Saloon radio show, right here live and direct on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzep, at bzep, my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. I'm also on Facebook. My intro music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at ReverbNation.com. Promotional consideration by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Also by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Thanks also to my personal KC-135 Kettle One contingent, my Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be becoming intimate in perhaps, I suspect, less than an hour. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Dan Herrin for being here tonight. Shout out to Kaiser Schuff. Thanks for listening, sir. Thanks to you for being in chat and also for listening in podcast. Folks, you have a great weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday. To you, one and all, I say God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.